Welcome back to the Intentional Classroom and Cosmetology Exam Review. I know it's been a hot freaking minute since I've actually produced anything and put anything out there. I've had a lot of stuff going on with my own personal health and a lot of things going on in my life, but it's 2023 and it's time to get you the information that you need to actually pass that state board. So here we are, and I've decided to kind of go through my past videos and break them down into smaller pieces so that you have some more bite-sized pieces to help prepare you for your state board. So don't forget, I do have a program out there called cosmetologyexamreview.com. So if you like how I present the information, if you need a little bit of help, go to that website, cosmetologyexamreview.com, and go ahead and either get a monthly subscription or you can get a year annual thing or whatever you want to do. There's 75 practice tests there and a whole bunch of explainer videos to kind of help you prepare for your theory part of your state board. With that, let's get going. Today, we're going to talk about oxidative and non-oxidative color and understanding the difference between those two things, all right? So we have non-oxidative and oxidative. What's the difference, right? We need to know the difference because when we talk about hair color, we really need to understand the two different categories, how they behave, and which types of hair color kind of fall into these categories here, all right? So let's start with non-oxidative, all right? Non-oxidative colors don't have any ammonia in them. There's no ammonia, no hydrogen peroxide. They're very, very gentle. They don't make any permanent changes in the hair, okay? These are typically deposit-only colors, which means you can't lighten with it. There's no lift possible with them, right? So temporary colors, semi-permanent colors, think about your fantasy colors, your hair chalks, your spray colors, that stuff. Non-oxidative colors have a very large dye molecule, okay? So the actual pigment molecule is large, typically sitting on the outside of the hair strand or kind of in between that cuticle layer and cortex. It does not get in deep, okay? It's just kind of sitting on that outside. These are short-term colors. We choose to use a non-oxidative color. Could be because somebody has an event coming up. Could be something like Halloween, right? When you spray that color on your hair for Halloween or just a night out on the town. It could be something like a fantasy color that you're not sure that you can make this permanent commitment to. So we use a non-oxidative color. When I was in hair school, little old ladies got non-oxidative colors. They got these rinses on their hair and they'd get them done weekly and then they'd get their little roller set, okay? So non-oxidative colors do not last long. They are your temporary colors and your semi-permanent colors. So temporary colors, very large dye molecule, sits on the outside of the cuticle layer. Doesn't even make it into the hair strand, okay? These will typically last about one shampoo, one wash, okay? Now, here's the thing. If your hair is super porous, it might last a little bit longer, right? I used to fry my hair with bleach all the time, right? This is mostly my natural color at this point, but I was that girl that bleached my hair. So because my cuticle layer was so jacked up, a temporary color might last 2 or 3 washes for me because it was fried. I had no cuticle layer. So it kind of got in a little deeper than it should have. But temporary colors should last one shampoo. These are your spray colors, color gels, hair chalk, touch-up powders. I see a lot of those now where they'll do like touch-up root powders for gray hair coming in. Even mascara, that's one of my favorite examples of temporary hair color because really mascara or eyelashes are a type of hair, right? And mascara is something we put on every day and it coats our lash with color to darken it. That is a temporary hair color, okay? The other major type of non-oxidative hair color is a semi-permanent color. So semi-permanent colors last a little bit longer than your temporary color. The dye molecule for these are a little bit smaller and they sit between the cuticle and the cortex. So they're a little smaller. They kind of nestle themselves in between those two layers there. Now, these will usually last about 6 to 8 shampoos, okay? This is where we see our direct dyes. Now, a direct dye is the color, it's the pigment that we see when we put like a fantasy color in a bowl. So if you pick up your Pulp Riot or your Pravana, if you're a home stylist, your Manic Panic, all of those types of colors, and you stick that color in a bowl and you see hot pink, that's a direct dye molecule, which means it's not going to oxidize in any way. You see exactly what you're going to get. That's a direct dye molecule. We usually find those in semi-permanent colors, okay? So these are your fantasy colors. Semi-permanent colors are not just fantasy colors, though. They could be just a glaze or a gloss, anything like that, okay? They are deposit only. no ammonia, no hydrogen peroxide. You don't need to mix them with anything. Here's something I just want to make sure I include in this part. We talk about semi-permanent colors and fantasy colors. You know, fantasy colors have become really big in the past, 5 to 10 years or so. People want these pastels and these bright colors, and they're amazing. I love them. We have to make sure that we recognize that they are only intended to last 6 to 8 shampoos. So if you have a client in your chair that says, I want to be pastel pink, awesome. They need to understand that the commitment for that is that they come in on a very regular basis to have that semi-permanent color put back on. It's not meant to last 6 to 8 weeks. I see threads all the time on Reddit, on Instagram that say, why is this washing out? It's because it's a semi-permanent color. There's no ammonia, no hydrogen peroxide, okay? So these are your non-oxidative color. They don't really do any damage, but they also don't last very long. Something that will be on your state board is how many shampoos does a semi-permanent color last? 6 to 8 shampoos, okay? What do we use those non-oxidative colors for? A one-night event, to test run a color. If somebody's not sure they want to go a little bit red, do a semi-permanent, see how it goes for them. Could just be a quick change, maybe freshen up the color that they have, add a little more life to a dull color. We can use these to kind of refresh ends, right? These are not for big changes, not for permanent changes. These are temporary changes. Okay? Those are your non-oxidative color. Okay, we use semi-permanent for fantasy colors, for tones and glazes, for added shine. All right, let's move into the big boys. These are your oxidative colors. Okay, now these guys contain ammonia. These have some type of oxidizing agent. Sure, there are permanent colors out there or oxidative colors out there that are ammonia-free, but there is some type of catalyzing agent, some type of oxidizing agent, okay? An oxidizing agent is going to lift up the cuticle layer so that you can truly get into the cortex, all right? So oxidative colors have to have some type of oxidizing agent, and they use some type of hydrogen peroxide or H2O2 to break up the pigment inside the hair, okay? Oxidative colors have the ability to both lighten and deposit in a single product. That doesn't mean they all do, but they have the ability to do that, okay? We use oxidative colors to cover gray. We can use some of them to refresh ends, to lighten hair. We use them for a lot of different reasons. This is where we find both our permanent and our demi-permanent colors. Let's start with demi-permanent. Now, if you've watched my videos about myths on hair color, if you haven't, go watch it because it's a little scandalous. Some people don't agree with me. I don't care. This is what I think. This is what I know from science, you know, understanding research, science, all that jazz. But demi-permanent colors can last up to 6 weeks. In my humble opinion, they will last longer than permanent colors do because they do not usually typically contain any ammonia and they have a very low dosage of hydrogen peroxide in their developer, usually about 2%, okay? So a demi-permanent color is an oxidative color that lasts up to about 6 weeks. Does not lift, does not lighten. Can they lift or lighten? Yes, unpredictably, and they're not intended to, but if the hair is super fried and super porous, you might get a little bit of lift out of a demi-permanent color. They are marketed as deposit-only hair colors. They're not intended to lighten, okay? Typically ammonia-free, small amount of H2O2, like I said. They usually will add a lot of shine. If you've ever used Redken shades, they kind of market themselves as a color that thinks it's a conditioner because they add a lot of conditioner to it, a lot of shine to the hair. They will blend gray, but not necessarily cover it. So demi-permanents are a really great option for covering gray on men, right? So that they don't look fake. It just kind of blends some of that gray in. They will usually fade on tone. And what that means is if you put demi-permanent color on, say my hair, a level 7, as they fade, they're going to just fade back into this. They're not going to fade into an orangey color because you haven't gone in and broken up all the pigment, okay? So demi-permanent colors last up to 6 weeks. No ammonia, very low amount of hydrogen peroxide, deposit only, long-lasting color, okay? Then you have your permanent color, also oxidative color, but this time it includes something called an aniline derivative, which is the catalyst that makes it permanent, okay? The reason it's permanent is because it permanently alters the internal structure of the hair. Permanent color doesn't last forever. Doesn't mean that you're red forever because you did it. We all know, even if you take permanent red color, you're not red forever. It fades into all these off-tone colors, right? It's permanent because you've changed the structure of the hair. Uses this aniline derivative. It uses ammonia or something like it, some type of oxidizing agent, and it uses up to 40 volume hydrogen peroxide in there, up to 12% hydrogen peroxide. It will actually go in, break up melanin pigment, and then that artificial pigment will combine with the aniline derivative to kind of get stuck into that hair and create a new color for you. You don't need to understand all that science on this video. We'll get into that in another day, but know that you are permanently changing the internal structure of the hair. It is not going to fade back to your natural tone once you've used permanent color. Demi-permanent will. Usually with permanent color, you're going to need a retouch every 3 to 4 weeks. Never going to revert back to that natural, but it can lighten and deposit for you up to 4 levels safely on virgin hair, okay? So when we do things like a color retouch and refreshing the ends, really important that we recognize that we can usually use a permanent oxidative color to lighten or cover that gray at the retouch, and then a demi-permanent on zones 2 and 3 to refresh those ends. Very rarely is there a reason to put permanent color through the ends unless it's virgin hair and you're lightening those ends, okay? There's just really not a reason to it. I knew somebody once that put level 2 permanent color through someone's hair over and over and over and over and over. Fried her hair. There was zero reason to fry level 2 hair. Zero reason. And it took us years to repair her hair and get it where she needed to be. So just remember that. Don't use permanent color on those ends if you don't need to. There's my rant. I need to move on. Okay. What do we use demi-permanent for? Going darker. If you're just doing tint going darker, you're not trying to cover gray, there is no reason to pull out permanent color. Demi will last longer. We use it for gloss and shine, right? Refreshing those ends. Demi-permanent colors are full of conditioners. They're full of ceramides. They're going to make the hair shiny. And again, they're going to last longer than the permanent will. We use them to refresh the ends. Why would we choose permanent color? Well, we could use it to cover gray. Demi-permanent might blend that gray. It doesn't have enough power because it doesn't have that ammonia to help cover that gray. We need to lift that cuticle up to cover that gray and really get in there and make the change that we need to make, okay? We would also use permanent if we're going to lighten virgin hair. So if you are lightening virgin hair, Demi is not going to do that for you. You're going to have to use permanent color or lightener if you're going more than 4 levels, okay? Or finally, it could be a color retouch. If you're doing a color retouch, covering gray, lightening, you might need to use permanent color for that. So it's really understanding when we choose which type of hair color and why, okay? So important that we understand our color and we know our color and we understand why we're using the color we're using, okay? If we don't understand that, we start putting things on people's heads and we start doing damage. If we can't keep the integrity of the hair intact, we're not going to keep the client in our chair, frankly. They will eventually realize that there's other options out there and that they can do better. Okay, so just take a second. If you need more, go to Cosmetology Exam Review. Check out what I've got on there. I am excited to share more content with you this year. I promise I'll be more present than I have been for the past 6 months of my life. But go check out Cosmetology Exam Review. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to share it with your classmates. And if you need anything, put a comment, reach out to me and I would love to chat with you. All right. Have an awesome day.